What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 59. I am your host, Marcus, and in this episode, we're talking about I am starting over again. Now, what essentially brought this topic up was, New Year's resolution, and something I've talked about how, I don't believe you should wait to a specific date to make change. Like, if you have that desire to want to change, do it now. Cash in on that moment now. And over last year, I've really tried to hone that intuition, that desire, that feeling you get that it's right and you should be doing it. And I try to amplify that, through meditation, through breathing technique. I actually do some intermittent fasting as well, because I believe that helps you really get in that moment where you're feeling, you kind of get almost in that survival mode, and you're really honed in on your senses and that intuition. It's something you have to build, because I think a lot of times that intuition, right, we tend to forget it, and then it's hard to depict it when it happens, and it happens a lot more than we think. But if you can refine it, it's there a lot more than you know. But again, it only gives you the next step. And so, one of my favorite books I read every year is Michael Singer's. I believe it's called The Untethered Soul, which is his first book, essentially talking about that roommate in your head and understanding that it's just noise, and that you are just essentially viewing life through a movie almost. And so I've really tried to reset myself in the beginning of every year. I guess you could say I tried to do that. I look back on the past year and what I've really been kind of lacking on. And one thing I've noticed, and I talked about a lot, is I try to educate myself through different books, through different things, and being curious. This year, I haven't read as many books as I have in the past couple of years, and a lot of it does get repetitive. There are some books that always stand out. You always come across a book, it seems, maybe 3 or 4 different books throughout the year that really stand out. Among the 50, 60 books I was reading at the time, this past year, I think I probably maybe went over 30 books. I've read started reading over a lot of the same books. And I think Michael Singer was one of those books that I read, I think, multiple times this year, and really just figuring out how he did it, how, just going through your intuition and being okay and trusting that, a lot of times we fear things. We fear that we're going to lose something in our life, and so we worry about that. And instead of thinking about the abundance of stuff and that things are going to be okay, we worry about that. Well, how am I going to pay for this, pay for that? And going and living this way, coming from where I did, right, and growing up in a family where you worked hard and you just worked specifically, right. You essentially almost try to find a union job, and that's what you did, and then you'd be set for life, right? Like, you retire earlier than most people, and you would just receive that pay for the rest of your life, on top of um, whatever else you accumulated over through time. And then living this other way and thinking about following your intuition was very different, and it's very different for a lot of people because we grew up the same way. And so when I start talking about starting over, it's almost like a reset button. Like, you find yourself and you evolve. And one of the biggest things, people will always hold you to, well, you said you were this way, you said you were that way. We evolve all the time. And if you're not evolving, if you're not gathering new information, uh, and challenging, your beliefs, challenging your morals, and challenging your thoughts and ideas, of not only other people but yourself, you come to a better understanding of who you are and what you like, and you start accepting more things in your life that you like and that you are, and parts of yourself that you may have left dormant, and start refining those. And over the past year, I really started getting back into art. I just like being creative, and looking at Discover Ignite and everything I've learned through Discover Ignite, all the fantastic people I've met. I've made some really great friends through Discover Ignite. some really great people, some amazing people, and understanding where am I going from here with Discover Ignites. And if you may have noticed, or maybe you haven't noticed, right, I've really let off the gas on Discover Ignites. I haven't been posting more than one video, and it's essentially just been a podcast. And Discover Ignite, I think I'm just leaving as a podcast for now, and cutting back because I want to focus my energy on those things that really matter most. And I feel like the podcast is going to be more of an update of what I'm doing and where I'm going. And I think if you can see, if you looked at my Discover Ignite channel, YouTube channel, which essentially everything started from, it's been my journey along the way and the things that I've gone through along the way in hopes to help you. And so documenting everything I've been doing over the past couple of years, and it's been some crazy years. I've done some things that I've really challenged myself. And I think, when you talk about living a life, right, like it's about experiences. And for me, I've always tried to be successful in things. And I think that's how I determine possibly my success in life, is by my achievements. Maybe that's just because of the way I've been. And so I actually try to break out of that as well. I try to be more one with nature. I've always loved nature. I grew up in nature. And I think through like my 20s, I really gravitated more towards like the city life. And now getting older, I miss things. I miss being out in nature, I miss doing all that stuff, and kind of that survival mentality. And so I've been doing a lot more of that and weaning away from the city life. And for myself, maybe that's just getting older. And so even everything that I've done with Discover Ignite, I've realized that, it's hard to change a person. You have to want to change. For myself, I've wanted to change at a young age because I didn't like who I was. And so I've ignited change multiple different times in my life when I don't like where I'm at. And reflecting back over the year, the progress Discover Ignite has made has been very slow because I have been kind of all over the place trying to find guidance for it, and ultimately understand that it has just been essentially a journal for me to see where I'm at, see where I want to go. And I think that is where it's going to be from this point. And I created a TikTok account last year, and that's got a lot of traction really fast. And people they want to talk to me about specific things, and I'm always open to talking and discussing. And Phil, you can always hit me up in my DMs on Instagram or TikTok, and we can talk, right? Like if that's something you want to do, I'm always happy to help people. But I think the direction that I want to go is I've started talking about NFTs. I started talking about blockchain and how much I love the community, how much I love what it's about, what the opportunity is, and where it's going is really exciting to me. And so, like for me, I want to start really diving deep. I want to start developing again in blockchain, and not what I used to do. That's not what I used to do. I used to program, but not in blockchain. And so now I want to take my skills into blockchain, take my art in blockchain, and do all of that, just focus all my attention on that. And yes, stock market is still very much important to me, and it's something I'm very much want part of my life. So I talk about a lot of different times, having 2 or 3 things and just focusing on that. And I think that's where my time is going to be. It's going to be on blockchain, art, and stock markets. And a lot of these different things, right, they could take up a lot of time. And it's finding that. And something I always talk about and I always relate about is I've always admired Leonardo da Vinci, because he wasn't just about one thing. He did art, he did engineering, right? He did anatomy, he did all different kinds of different things. And people know him for his art. And I think that's what I loved about him, was he wasn't one dimensional. He did multiple things. And it doesn't just help you on understanding the way things work as an engineer, right? As an artist, we all are creating in some way, shape, or form, and that's what I've noticed, in my programming, in my art, right? Is you are creating in YouTube, right? This is in podcasting. It's all about creation, in that even problem solving is about creating new solutions, right? Everything is about creations and solving problems, viewing things, giving perspective. That's what it all is. That's what it all boils down to. And so when I think about Leonardo da Vinci, right, I try, and by no means am I Leonardo da Vinci, but I like that concept. I'm bringing it to life because you have those slivers of pie that interest you, right? Like I have blockchain. I've been getting a lot into blockchain and NFTs and creating that space, and then the art and doing edits and creating my own NFTs and being in that community and seeing art every day. I love seeing art. I just love everything about art and seeing people's perspective. And the thing is about art is you can't judge art, right? Like whatever opinion you give is your opinion, right? That may not be what the other person thinks. And something I talk about when I talk about philosophy and all that on this on the channel, Discover Ignite, is that you have to have that approach. And so when I talk about, um, you know, starting over, it's about resetting. Where are my priorities? What I need to do, and getting into blockchain. And I want to start developing a blockchain, and what I can create, and the opportunity it presents. But not just that, is going into this year really trying to follow that guidance I had from last year, and follow the intuition and see where it goes, and try to refine it the best that I can, and realize that you get to a point, spirituality, right? And I've never really been a spiritual person my whole life, and then getting my older age, I started becoming more spiritual, in the fact that I try to hone in on the intuition, and understand that, and reading and learning about it, and trying to get at those other conscious levels and realize what that is, what that means. And for myself, again, reforming what I am, and realize that, again, I am not essentially this person, if it makes sense. And I know this is kind of really going off track, but going into that intuition is that, I do feel like you have some sort of roadmap in some aspect. And I've heard different perspectives about this. And I know we've kind of done a 180 here real fast. But being said, following that, and following the next steps, I'm interested to see where it takes me, right? It's taking me back to art, something I've loved to do, something I wish I could design. I wish I could just draw and do art. I really loved it. And now the opportunity could be there. It could present itself, as long as I stay true to myself, right? And realize that I do love building things. I do love creating and coding and software. I do really love that stuff when it is up to me, right? When it is on my understanding of it. And even for myself, I even thought about, just picking up a gig to start learning to do it better, to focus 100% on that, and essentially, obviously, paying for my time, but to do that and to expand that, to gain the knowledge. And I think a lot of times, especially last year, I know I took upon myself to become an entrepreneur, and what that takes is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of, and not to say that I'm up nights worrying about things. For the most part, in following that intuition is big about that, and understanding that when you're doing it, you only get next steps, and that can be scary for a lot of people. And even for myself, there are moments where I've been like, Marcus, is this really what you should be doing? And trying to reset, and realizing that, if I remain calm, things are working out, right? Like I have that next step, and I get the next step, but it's just about, continuing to move, and not just being okay with the moment, like continuously follow that intuition. Okay, what should I be doing right now? Right. And what is that? And a lot of times, you can fall into this concept of being lazy and procrastinating about certain things. But ultimately, I think it's intuition. Like, really, what are you doing? Yeah, I mean, if you find yourself sitting in front of TV, right, that's not really intuition. That's just tuning the world out and try to escape what is currently going on. And when you are in tune with intuition, it's more, okay, what can I be doing right now? What it really like livens me up instead of sitting in front of a TV, plonking in front of TV, right, eating eating a bag of potato chips, whatever the case is, right? What else can I be doing? And again, going back to different things and even talking about doing intermittent fasting and how it amplifies that and allows me to start thinking about other things, right? I don't think about food, like I think about what can I be doing um, to perhaps enhance my editing skills or enhance my perspective on life, or working on crypto blockchain and starting to do that and working on NFTs. And I love the space. I love the technology. I love what is possible there. And it's really intriguing to see other people's art, create my own art, and surprise myself that I still have that even throughout all these years of doing stuff here and there, that my artistic side is still there. Uh, Given right, like I put in a lot of time as a youngster, and I still had moments. I think every year I would still have moments where I would draw for a couple of days on end, and then I would kind of just let it go for the year, and then I would come back to it and do it again. I've always been drawn back to it, like it's like almost a calling, like you should do this. And so I'm trying to experiment those three different things, and then again bring in Leonardo da Vinci into it, and realizing that the creative part helps with everything else. It helps you solve problems, right? And you look at art, and art is paying attention to detail on specific things. In my mind, I've always found like the best art I've always made was when I pay attention to detail in every line, in every crease, in everything that is possibly going on, that I'm visually seeing, and try to break that down into framework, right? And outlines and textures and all these different things, and taking that in. And then when you start like coding and stuff like that, it's about understanding and building out everything in your head, and then making it come to life, and understanding that you're just looking at lines of code, and to actually realize what this step is doing in your head, and visualizing everything is the same as art, and it's the same is almost like the stock market too, in a way. And then you look at that and think that, okay, well, I have to get like a big idea of what is going on, and then defining every step along the way. And I know this this particular episode may seem like I'm really just rambling on, but the thoughts and ideas, I just get like this to the point to where they just they almost they just spew out sometimes. And I really enjoy going out and doing these things and following that. And why, again, I started Discover Ignite is to know that you can always start over, and to know that intuition will push you to where you need to be. And a lot of times, I would be doing specific things, and I really would not enjoy doing them. And I think, you live that concept. You're supposed to live for every day. Like there is no tomorrow, but no one actually lives that way. You always think to yourself, well, I'll wake up tomorrow, so what's the point of living that way? But when you're talking about living, it's really like doing something that's like, wow, right? Like, man, that kind of made my heart pump a little bit there. Made me feel alive, right? Like doing stuff like that. Like today, I went out and I started rock climbing, and man, I really felt alive in that moment. And that's what it takes to live every day like you're living. And for myself, I even have to tell myself, I do enjoy the work I do. I do love the art. I do love the engineering. I do love the stock market part of it. And I do love going out to nature and doing things for the first time, and seeing, do I really like this? Right. And realizing that it really comes down to being around the people, or being around other people that make you feel good about who you are, make you feel good about what you're doing, and surrounding yourself about those people. And that's what really allows you in being like genuinely interested in people's lives. And one thing I've really noticed about getting older is, I don't know if it's just being more aware of it, but really looking at other people's lives. Like, people are really trying to make a difference, and they try. Everybody tries to make a difference in their life, right? And understand where people are coming from is extremely important. And for myself, like trying to depict like what it is that other people are looking for in life. Like we're all looking for the same thing, right? And we all should start over at some point. That it doesn't have to be at the beginning of every year. Like, know that's what you want, and then just go for it. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. And restarting, and for myself, I restart a lot. Like I think there comes a time where you just need to drop stuff. You give it time, and when it's just not working, you drop it. And maybe people like that, maybe people don't, but you have to determine what that looks like for you. For myself, it's been hard because you follow intuition. It's like picking one thing up and you drop another thing and you start another thing. It's kind of having like the baselines, right? Like I've found something in the blockchain space I really like. I found something that really drives my interest, and seeing where it goes and staying up with it and doing it each and every day. And even Discover Ignite, like I've always loved to help people. It's just been part of it. But now I feel like I can do that in a different way, because coming on here and telling you to ignite change is a lot harder than it seems, because you want to make change, but yet a lot of times we feel like there's something that needs to be done. We need that aha moment or something, and sometimes you do. Sometimes you need a perspective shift to be able to make that. And sitting and talking about it helps to an extent, but really you have to have some kind of emotional tie to want to make a change in your life. If you don't have any kind of emotional tie to it, it's not going to happen, right? And realizing what it is, and realizing that you have to take action to make that happen is important. And so, moving forward and going with Discover Ignites, I'm going to keep it to a podcast. And even still, I don't know if that's where I'm going to take it. I've been debating staying with Discover Ignite and not shifting full focus on blockchain, and possibly creating, a YouTube channel based off of blockchain and NFTs and development, and going down that route. And because I like what it is now, and I think life is about living in the moment, and you realize that we change all the time. We desire change all the time. And there is no perfect picture, I think, right? And a lot of times some people are good at details, right? Some people are good at general knowledge. Some people are good at different things. And I think there's nothing wrong with any of it. And why I like Leonardo da Vinci, and I think what a lot of escapes a lot of people's minds, right? Because he was a philosopher and everything too. And people, feel that, he was just one thing, and they try to depict him as one thing, and he wasn't. That's just not who he was. I think you have to be a well-rounded person. We can't be one-dimensional. And when you start talking about intuition and being one with the universe and stuff like that, you have to realize that we're not at all that way. That we are multiple things, and just being kind and genuine to people. And I think people, you love yourself for it, and people love you for that. Is being genuine and showing appreciation to people, because we lack it so terribly bad. And that's what I always hoped with Discover Ignite, was to connect with people, to make them realize that they're not alone, because I've been there. And to go out and get things and restart things and follow intuition, and seek those things that you enjoy, and bringing that out in people is really what I like to see. And some of my close acquaintances, right, close friends that I've had, it's good to see change in them, like change that I've made in myself. But you can't force change upon somebody. You can always paint a picture for them, but I think ultimately for them, it's up to them to take the step. And for me, for Discover Ignite, I think I've gotten to a point to where I can only take you so far, and it's up to you to want to make that change. It's up to you to take the effort to get there. And for me, it's like I feel like I can do it in other ways, shapes, and forms. And I'm coming across other communities through art and NFTs that I am making an impact. I can bring who I am to that space and make an impact and make people's lives better through art. And I think that's phenomenal that you can do that with art. And something that I kind of known was always there, but I never pursued it. And I think 2022 is the year of pursuit. You're seeing people, leave their jobs to pursue. And I think that's important. I think we're all there. We're all trying to pursue and do better and find what it is, what our calling is. And you see that impact around the world. You're starting to see that tremendously. People want more out of life. And why is that so bad? You should want the most out of life. You should be able to enjoy life. And so for me, again, quitting, or not really quitting, but starting over again is not quitting anything. It's realizing what is important and then going with that. And I think this question has been up in my head for a very long time. Like, how much more do you need to get started? Why not just start? You don't have to ever get defensive. You don't have to ever explain why you do something. If people agree, they will follow, they will stay, because they are looking for that too. Right? And realize it's an evolving state of mind, it's an evolving thing. And this is pursuit of happiness is an evolution of who you are. That's pursuit of happiness is the evolution of who you are. So go out, ignite change, be curious, and do those things that make you happy.